So are you looking to make a lot of credits very fast in Starfield? Well, this is the video for you. There are a few ways in which you can do this, which don't just involve farming things over and over again, but actually involve fun gameplay, things that you want to do naturally, but you will maybe want to do them a bit more efficient. Maybe you want to play as a pirate and smuggle contraband, or farm it at the same time as farming for gear so that you shoot two birds with one stone. Well, we're gonna cover that and more in this video, so let's dive right in. Now, one of my favorite methods to make a lot of credits fast in Starfield is to smuggle contraband, and not just because it's really cool to feel like a pirate, but because it brings you multiple sources of revenue if you do it right. So this includes the illegal goods, the spaceship you'll be stealing, as well as any extra items or credits that you will find along the way, and you will find quite a ton of those anyway. So contraband is something that you find from multiple sources. You can also find them in very rare containers. However, that's not really reliable. By far, the best method to constantly find contraband is to always raid Crimson Fleet ships. And the best way to do so is to get any of these available missions from any mission board, be it the normal ones or the ones from the various factions that have you search and destroy for Crimson Fleet captain ships. And this, by the way, by default gives you at least a few thousand credits as it is just by doing this mission, so you're already in the plus. But from this point on, you will want to search for that ship, which is really easy with the plan router, and from that point on, you will want to destroy the enemy's engines and not the ship. If you happen to fight multiple at the same time, destroy all of them but leave one intact and only take down its engines. Reason being is because we want to dock inside of it, and this is where the magic happens. So every single one of these Crimson ships will almost always have one of these contraband items, and more often than not, I was able to find even two or more of these like briefcases sitting around with like illegal organs and other kinds of things. And if you look at the prices right there, they are pretty high. You're not going to be able to sell them at those prices, but like a tenth of that price, but it's still going to be an amazing source of money. Now, from this point on, you're going to just want to go the regular route, go upstairs and grab any other item that you might find on the way, plus take down any of the remaining captains and enemies on that ship. Usually, they will also hold a bunch of items with a chance for them to be epic or legendary. Plus, totally check out the cargo hold of the ship you just got, because you're going to find some extra credits here too. So this is another few hundred on top, if not even a few thousand at times. Now, from this point on, you will want to bring them to a trade authority, and pretty much every single major city has one hidden inside of it. However, you're going to have to pass the scans, and if you don't have the proper shielded cargo, you're not going to pass them and you will be arrested, or even more, you're going to have a bounty set upon your head. So there are two routes to go about this, and I'm going to explain them to you right now. The first and most straightforward is to buy a shielded cargo, and there are a couple of locations in which you can find them in. The earliest is in the system called Porina, right here, very close to some of the other systems you've been nearby, and you will need to head over to a certain location called the Red Mile. There's even a quest that eventually will bring you to this location. So once you're on the ground level, just make your way inside, and eventually on to the left side, you will find this main office with Lone inside. You can talk to him and he is going to sell you some of these shielded cargo holds, and a few of them are actually quite cheap, a few thousand at most, so you can just replace your existing one or place it on top of it, and you're now going to have a 50% chance by default to pass any scan upon your cargo. Now, there's also a second way in which you can do that, and this is by aligning yourself with the Crimson Fleet, which actually gives you two benefits when it comes to smuggling. So this is going to involve that undercover mission we talked about in yesterday's video. Basically, you have to let yourself arrested in the United Colonies, like for example in New Atlantis. Accept the undercover mission, and this is going to let you infiltrate the Crimson Fleet, and if you just follow the first couple of missions for them, eventually you can join this faction and get the following benefits, one of which is going to be access to their space station called the Key, which you find in the Krix system. So unlike all other capitals, this does not scan your cargo, which means you can literally dump all of your illegal goods at any time with no problem. There's even a trade authority inside that you can pretty much just dump all of your contraband very fast. Plus, inside you will also find this NPC that sells additional shielded cargo holds for your ship if you want to do some extensive contraband all around the galaxy. So choose either this with the Crimson Fleet or the one from the Red Mile. However, keep in mind that if you want to consistently farm contraband from the Crimson Fleet captains, you're going to have a bounty set on your head and you cannot come back to this location anymore without paying a significant sum of money. That is why the first method is probably going to be the best. But once you've ensured that you have these shielded cargoes, once you have stolen your first contraband from a Crimson Fleet enemy, you will have to absolutely make sure to place that contraband inside of the ship cargo bay. Otherwise, if you keep it in your inventory, it's not going to apply that shield protection against scans. And from this point on, you will want to just make a quick save and then just teleport to your nearby city, either New Atlantis, Aquila, Neon, or anything else in between. Once you reach the destination, you're going to get the scan. You will have a minimum of 50% chance to, well, just pass it. If you don't, you can reload the save file, and from that point on, you can safely land on the planet. From this point on, inside the city, every single one of them will have a trade authority. Aquila is the easiest because, yeah, the trade authority is basically to the right side of the entrance, right here into this building. Go ahead inside, speak to the NPC, and you can then sell all of your goods. In this case, it's going to be just a 10th of the price, but if you go with the commerce perk, you can increase that by up to 20% at the very least and just get better sums of money out of trading. For New Atlantis, if you want to reach the trade authority, you will have to take your train to the mast area, then just take the elevator to the right side of the train station, go below and just keep it in front of you until the exit tunnel, where you will find another trade authority right there where you can again sell those goods. So that's going to be another few thousand plus the items that you got on board and some of the extra credits. And if you also sell the ship, which is going to be another like 2,000 or 3,000 credits profit from the difference between registering it and then selling it, you're looking at anywhere between 5 to 10,000. Usually it's closer to 10 and sometimes even exceeding it, even in the early stages, which I think is really great for just a few minutes of work. Now, another source of money which can be pretty decent is to sell planetary survey data, especially if you travel a lot on planets and scan everything. You can sell them to Vladimir for a few thousand for each of the data entries that you get. So you can even combine this with some of the other mission boards that do require you to also scan a planet fully, which is another few thousand on top. However, this is going to be a bit more time consuming because every single entry, especially for fauna and flora, requires multiple scans for the same specimen. So for example, for a single type of creature, you will have to scan multiple types of specimen, about like 6 or 7. So basically a whole herd of the same species before it counts as one. And then you might have like 2, 3 or 4 more that you have to scan. Meanwhile, for the resources, usually you will find quite a lot of them in caves, so whenever you see them from the distance, definitely make sure you go inside and you will usually find at least a handful of them, and many times you can just like go in a bunch of caves and finish off what you already haven't found on the surface level. But also pay attention and scan the planet because usually every planet has multiple biomes and you will find specific scannable flora, fauna or resources in specific biomes inside of these planets. So make sure you visit every single one of the biomes existing in them. And from that point on, also make sure you go for the traits. Usually there are 3 anomalies or unexplored geology features for that planet that you can scan, and you can see them by their distinctive icons from afar, kind of like this pulse or so icon you can see in the distance. Usually it involves just a couple of scans and you can immediately finish it off. From this point on, you can just head over to the Alpha Centauri system, go to the Eye, or if you already progressed in the game, back at the lodge on New Atlantis and talk to Vladimir, sell him the data entry, and each one of these entries costs about 1,000 credits. That's not bad for what you're doing. And finally, this brings us to by far the best method, which isn't going to just give you the highest amount of credits, but also the best chances to get a ton of high value loot, especially legendaries. So for this to work, you'll want to absolutely make sure that you set your game on the very high difficulty before loading into any new area. And in the case of traveling to a new planet and landing on an outpost, to make sure you set this game on very high before loading into that solar system. Once you do that and land on that planet, from this point on you can just set the game back to normal or even very easy, because by this point the game has already spawned the loot and the containers inside as if your game was set on the very high difficulty. It's just that the enemies will be much easier to defeat without the very high difficulty. Again, just like in the case of the previous methods, I recommend to combine this with any bounty mission that involves killing any like enemy marauders or captains or any source of enemy leaders on planetary outposts. From this point on, just defeat the enemies the normal way and loot pretty much everything. Because we loaded this area on the very high difficulty, this means that the game has a very good chance to provide rares, legendaries and higher value loot than we would otherwise, even if you later on switched to the easy difficulty. Like in this case, you can get items that are worth a few thousand each at the vendor, so whatever price you see on them, it's usually 10% that you can get at the vendor. But in the case of epics and legendaries, each one of these will cost about 1 to even 3,000 credits when you sell them at the vendors, so it's totally worth it as you can grab quite a few of them. And in just a few minutes of doing just one of these outposts right here via that mission, I didn't just get the reward from defeating the captain during that mission, but also at least like 10, 20, even 30,000 credits very easily from a few minutes of work. Now for this, I highly suggest to also have a couple of companions with you so that you can offload some of the carry capacity onto them, especially the loot and the trash that you'll be collecting. Just put them inside of their inventory, and once you go back into any solar system or any major city, just grab them back into your inventory and sell them at the terminal for some huge profits. Now again, keep in mind that every single one of these vendors will have a limit of about 5,000 credits, so either go ahead and advance the time 48 hours so that they completely refresh, or just go again to a trade authority and sell it, as these vendors typically have a much higher budget, usually 2 or 3 times higher than any other vendor. So in that case, you can more easily sell everything before you have to reset or move to another vendor. And that is pretty much it. Of course, there are many other methods you can use, but this is by far the simplest and the ones that you can use the earliest to your discretion and also have a bit of fun on top. This is it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.